Welcome back to Figure Depot. Today we're taking a look at the knockoff MaFex Venom. You'll have to excuse me, my voice isn't quite up to par. Feeling a little under the weather. I've had a sinus infection for the past about 3 days, so forgive me if I'm a little short of breath and not as articulate as usual. But anyway, right off the bat, we can see with the packaging, it just says MAF, no X. And then like some of your Marvel logos and stuff that were on the other package are not there. Other than that, it's essentially the same package. It looks really good. You get your same like product shots and stuff on the back. And again, MAF, not MaFex. Still has the number 88 and all that stuff. It does say Medicom Toy Corporation here, but it doesn't have the Medicom Toy call out on the front, so just interesting. I'm curious if these barcodes are the same. I don't have one with me to check at the moment. Here on the other side, another product shot, and it says Venom comic version, MAF again. Still get the number 88 and a couple little graphics there. So anyway, I've already gotten him out of the package, as you can see here. A buddy of mine gave this to me. He wanted me to review it and kind of give people an idea of how the quality between the knockoff and the legitimate one translates. So here we go. We get the typical MaFex flight stand, although this one is extremely, extremely loose. So I'll have to go in and tighten it up. I'm not going to be able to use it for our purposes here today. It is very, very limber. Blonk. One thing I will note right away is the paint quality is just slightly inferior. You do see a nice blue and black on the figure himself, but what I have noted is that the white paint applications are not quite up to par with the actual official release. They're just a little bit sloppier, and it is obvious. You can tell it. The application of the paint on the spider, it is carved in, etched into the figure, and they got it a little bit misaligned in a couple places, and we'll look at that a little bit closer. Other than that, it's very hard at just a glance to note any major difference in this knockoff version from the actual MaFex. It comes with the same accessories. It does come with like 6 sets of hands. So you've got this sort of web holding hands here, and you can see they grip on just fine to the spider fluidy material, web fluid. We have this one that's kind of curled up. I don't know if this broke off of one of the longer ones or if you get this little bitty one for some reason. Then we have ones that you can slip his hands through. So if we popped off one of his hands, slid this on to the wrist, and then reattach the hand, you kind of have that sort of look. And you can wrap this around his arm or whatever you want to do with the excess, but that's kind of the idea with that particular style. So you get 2 of those as well. We also get alternate feet that have magnets on them, so he can climb your refrigerator or any other, of course, metal surface. And we get 6 pair of hands, like I mentioned. We get these kind of relaxed open hands that come on the figure, which we'll get a closer look at in a second. Then we get these that are more pronounced, curved at the fingertips, like he's slashing or grabbing at something a little more aggressively. We also get the closed-fisted hands, and of course all these have this nice rhomboid trapezoid, whatever that is called, pattern on the back, the little white square thing. They all have that, which is nice. So consistent there with a look at the character. This is, of course, the early 90s comic version of Venom. And all the paintwork on the hands looks really good and clean. So these are kind of more of like a trigger hand. And then we have the climbing hands with the magnet. So magnetized hands and feet. And then, of course, I think as I've already mentioned, the gripping hands, right and left for the web. For the head sculpts, we get this open-mouthed head, which he's kind of like he's talking. We also get this kind of grinning head. Looks a bit more mischievous. You can see what I mean about the paint application. It is a little thin here on this knockoff version. Much thicker and heavily applied on the actual figure release. And then we have this Eddie Brock head with the symbiote crawling up his neck. And you can see it's a bit more sloppy than the legitimate release. The face paint, though, looks fairly consistent. It's kind of got that comic style etching of the eyebrows, and it looks really good. Other than the neck being sloppy, I think this head sculpt is pretty consistent. We do have some overspray onto the forehead of the blonde hair, but the face decal or apps or whatever they use to put on there, the method, still doesn't look that bad, especially from a distance. Now, I typically keep a couple figures on my nightstand just to kind of mess around with while I'm watching TV or, you know, chilling or whatever. And this is definitely a figure that's going in that rotation. It is a lot of fun to manipulate. The paint on him is really good. The sculpt work is really, well, it's on the back. It looks much cleaner than I mentioned on the front. On the front's where you can tell they kind of missed the mark a little bit, and I'm going to go back and clean that up myself, so that won't be a problem to do. It's just annoying to have to, but again, a much cheaper version, so you should expect that. The joints, for the most part, seem very tight and solid. He has the drop down hinges here, just, you know, like the other figure. As far as the construction of the figure, it's exactly the same as the other version, as the, you know, real version. I've been talking to a buddy of mine, and his theory is that you have the people using the molds and casting these figures during the day for the company, for the legitimate releases, and then you have people that are coming in overnight and kind of making the knockoffs to sell under the table with the same molds, but the quality of the work being done with these is certainly substandard than what you're getting in the daytime workers. And so yeah, I'm not sure how the logistics of sneaking those things out of there for profit, or if the company that's making them is just doing that on their own, or how exactly that is working out. But you can see the gap here, and I can bridge that again with some more paint, but it's not touching here, but on this side it is. I do love the sculpt of the MaFex figures. I like the huge lats. I like the way the torso is designed, and the abdominal structure is really nice. Looks good. It's a great looking figure. So, you know, this piece is certainly consistent in design. So they're using the same molds, whatever they're doing. I think it's just a slightly inferior paint job. And but yeah, this dude is like fun to pose around. He's just so fluid, and you know, he's easy to stand. You're not gonna have any trouble standing the figure. I don't feel like he's gonna fall over. I don't feel like any of his joints are gonna break. All his articulation is very smooth. You can see some of the joints are just a little wobbly. I think that's going to be another main difference here over time, is these joints might wear out at the shoulders. especially from what I can tell. But anyway, I do like the design. I like the way they've done the elbows. I think it looks really nice. It's kind of continuing the sculpt, and it's not just like chunky and blocky, kind of like if you look at, say, a Marvel Legend. Once you bend the elbow, you've got this, you know, huge gap. That looks a little better. I mean, you're still gonna have a gap because it's an articulated figure, so that's to be expected, but I think it looks a bit smoother on MaFex than, say, a Marvel Legend or something. But I like it a lot. And the range on the butterfly joints is really good on him. He does rotate 360, no problem. Coming around there, the shoulders go up and down, and then you have a bicep swivel. Then you have a double jointed elbow, as we previously mentioned. The hands and feet are on like a ball peg system, so you can pretty much get them in any angle you want them to be, just manipulating that ball peg. We do have a diaphragm joint that goes back pretty far, it goes forward pretty far. We have, if you use them in concert with one another, you can get him looking straight down. Get that arm out of the way so you can see it. So you can get him looking straight down, and you can get him to hunch back up and look back a good amount. So if he's scaling a wall, chasing Spider-Man, he's gonna be able to look up really nice and high, so that's good. Yeah, articulation is fine. It's not really skipping any beats or anything. It's a great figure, the original figure, of course. And then as a knockoff, I think they've done a pretty good job of capturing the same look. We get double jointed knees. We get, of course, the drop down hips that I mentioned earlier, and it'll split about to there, which is not any worse or better than the legitimate MaFex. So consistent there. We do get ankle pivot, which is nice. We do get down and up rocker, and then we have toe hinge articulation, and then it'll also pivot around 360, of course. So lots of fluid articulation there in the whole figure, but you know, even especially in the feet. And then you just pop that off and stick the magnetic feet on. So I've not tried to put these on yet. I'm assuming that's just going to slide right back in there. It probably should have heated this up first. So it's a little snug going back on, but there it is, no problem. So yeah, can't wait to get this guy on the refrigerator and have him climbing up. Looks cool. So great figure. If you're on a budget, you can't afford MaFex, definitely a good alternative. Again, most everything feels reasonably snug. I do think these hip joints probably get loose over time, and I think this elbow joint here is going to get loose over time, but everything else feels really snug, and they aren't loose, like super loose yet, like it's staying where I put it. But I just feel like over time, at some point, if I mess with it a lot, this is eventually, when I go put it out, it's gonna boom, 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 want to fall down on its own. Right now, it's just kind of teetering right on the edge, and I can like push it in. See, if you push it in a little, it gets a little tighter, using the friction against the butterfly joint there, little coupling. So I don't know. I'm happy with it for the price, and yeah, I think it's a great figure for what you're getting. if you'd like to get an idea of how he scales with other Venom figures, it's no secret he's a little bit on the small side. MaFex tends to run like a true 6-inch average height. SH Figure Arts is a bit smaller, just a little smaller, somewhere between 5.5 and 6. And then your Marvel Legends tend to run closer to like 6 1/4 to 6.5 for their average figure. So, bearing that in mind, he is a bit small, but those kind of earlier drawings of the Eddie Brock Venom in the comics, he was, I think, just a little bigger than this, but not just hulkingly huge like we've seen with Monster Venom, of course. Monster Venom is, of course, massively huge, and purposely so. Looking there at Wolverine, they have a similar girth and stockiness. I think Wolverine's legs are just a bit more muscular. His arms are a little bit larger, and his traps are certainly bigger. But Venom still stands a little bit taller than Wolverine does in the Marvel Legends scale. Here's a look at Venom next to the Pizza Spidey and the Retro Wave Spidey, and I head swapped these two. But you can see he's a bit smaller, or shorter. He's beefier, but he's definitely shorter than those two are. So he's not going to scale particularly well with your Marvel Legends figures. Here's a look at him with the Miles Morales Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy from the Spider-Verse animated film. And you can see they look okay with him. Again, you can tell he's still just a bit small, but there's certainly, you know, you can get them in the same shot together with some forced perspective and make it work. And they're kind of on the small end of Marvel Legends figures. Here he is with a knockoff Revoltech Spider-Man, which I reviewed last week. And you can see Spidey is smaller than him, so those two could work together in some pictures. And just for good measure, here we have him with some DC Universe Classics figures. We have the Superboy signature line figure, and then we have Wildcat. He does have the Marvel tramp stamp on the back that the legitimate figure does, so that's interesting and worth noting. And aside from the articulation, just getting a look at the figure himself now, you can see those little blue subtle highlights. I think they look nice. It's very subtle, but it's cool to see the blue markings coming up in the sculpt there. And the knockoff does a good job of making them subtle. And a lot of times, like for example on this Revoltech, they did an awful job of getting the paint here. All this glittery blue bled over onto the red. And so, you know, and it's heavy-handed up here. So on the knockoff Revoltech Spider-Man, the paint was a lot worse. On this MaFex knockoff, I mean, it's really hard to tell until you just get right up in here and see some of these inconsistencies. And actually, on some of the MaFex releases, there were some of these same issues. So getting a legitimate version is no guarantee that your paint lines are going to be perfectly clean. So it's a very interesting little foray here into the world of knockoff figures. For the most part, it's you know, it's kind of a toss-up. The paint's a little thin and sloppy here on the teeth there with the wide, and you can see here on the head how it's applied, not very thick, so you can still see some of the dark color coming through, some little gaps there where there's no paint. It's off on the eye there a little bit. They ran over onto the mask a little bit, so That's primarily the main issue with this figure, is just the inconsistency in paint quality. But yeah, so if you're on a budget, you'd like a MaFex Venom, you can't afford an expensive one. I think this one was $35, and I'm not sure what this guy's going for. I'm guessing he's only on the secondary market now, because this figure's been out for about a year now. So, you know, you're probably looking at 80, 90, 120, 130 or more dollars on somewhere like eBay or something, if your comic shops are all out of him. And I'm not sure what he retailed for. I think MaFex tends to, back when I was looking at the Batman stuff for like Dawn of Justice and all that, I think they were around $60, $70, but I think they've gone up to like 80 or closer to 90 to $100 now for their standard releases on figures. I know the MaFex Superman, I think, is about 110 or 120 maybe. I can't remember, but I'll be looking at him here before too long. Anyway, I love this thing. I'm going to be playing with it a lot. It's going to be sitting on my dresser, my nightstand, and he's just a lot of fun to move around and manipulate. Hope you all enjoyed this. Hope it was informative. Leave any comments or questions you have in the comments, and I'll be glad to answer those. And check out my Instagram, Figure Depot, one word, if you want to see some action figure photography and things, and other reviews and other action figure and comic related content. Thanks so much for watching today. I'll see you guys next time.